Okay, we're on. Welcome, welcome. Okay, let me share my screen so we can head on over. So thanks for joining. So tonight is all about gut health. And I think I wanted to make the really clear distinction that it isn't just gut health, it's also general wellness, vitality, it's all of you. And so we're going to unpack that a lot tonight. Who am I? So I know some of you and some of you I've never met. So I'm Olivia. I'm a naturopath, nutritionist, herbalist, homeopath, and essential oil educator. That's the professional side of me. The more important stuff is I'm a board game fanatic. I do love coffee. It's amazing how many people ask me if I drink coffee. I'm also a mum to 3 kids. So usually when I tell people that, I think they can make a good assumption there. But I'm also just like you. So my approach to health in general is really simple. I try to cut through a lot of the rubbish essentially that we see online. It's even for me as a nutritionist, I find it confusing sometimes when you're hearing about these different diets and different approaches and different supplements. It all becomes kind of overwhelming. So something that I want to do tonight is just help you bring it back to a place where it's simple. And as I said, I'm really going to break it down into specific strategies that you can start implementing tonight. So the hot topics tonight, we're going to go right back to like high school and learn about just digestion 101. And I want to teach it to you from a naturopathic point of view, which again is quite holistic. After that, we're going to get straight into poo. I want to talk to you about what your body's telling you from your poo. I'm also going to share with each and every one of you a poo chart. You're going to see my immature side. I've decided to use the child's poo chart because it's just it's actually way easier to relate to than the adult's poo chart. But it is so important to actually look in the bowl and check it out because we can tell a lot about absorption of nutrients and also your elimination. So with that in mind, I'm also going to show you what the poo-fet plate should look like. So again, forgetting diet labels, I just want to tell you what the human body requires from a macronutrient point of view, and I'll be able to give you some good visuals so that anytime you're sitting down to eat, you have a rough plan of what you should be trying to put on your plate. I'm going to walk you through the 4-step gut healing protocol. This has been designed, it's based on scientific medical data. It also has a naturopathic approach. And then this is the same healing protocol that I've used over the years with a number of patients. As you leave tonight, you are going to leave with 4 really easy, simple ways that you can heal your gut today. With that in mind, I've got 4 gut healing recipes that I'm going to walk you through. And again, these are simple stuff. You don't need to go to a health food shop for the recipes that I'm giving you. They're as cheap and easy and as quick as it kind of comes. Lastly, I've got a special offer that I'm going to share with you. And then at the very end of the session, I'm just going to walk you through the resources that are going to land in your inbox shortly. You are going to get a meal planner, your very own poo chart. You're also going to get the gut healing recipes. And I'm going to share with you the recording of this webinar because there are a few little stages tonight that you're going to need to get your inner nerd on. And we kind of start getting into the nitty gritty. So it can be really useful just to listen to it for a second time. Okay, so digestion 101. This is where I thought about how I could explain it really succinctly. And then I remembered that we live in the modern age and I can actually find something that's more effective and more succinct than I am, which is YouTube. So I'm going to share this little video.
When it comes to living a healthy life, feeling good begins in your gut. So let's take a step-by-step look at the process of digestion, or breaking down food into a form the body can use. There are many important factors that contribute to healthy digestion, like eating a healthy diet, exercise, and probiotics. Digestion occurs in 3 phases. Phase 1 is the cephalic phase, the steps that occur in your head when you see, smell, and taste food. Your vagus nerve, which is the information highway between your brain and digestive tract, is activated to trigger production of mucus, enzymes, and hormones to break down starch molecules. The second phase is the gastric phase, where food is churned with digestive enzymes and acid in the stomach. The final phase is the intestinal phase. Digestion and nutrient absorption primarily occur in the small intestine. Villi and microvilli line the small intestine and maximize surface area for nutrients to be absorbed into the bloodstream. Here, small nutrients are moved from the intestine into the blood and lymph to get delivered to various organs that need them. Water, undigested dietary fiber, and dead cells move into the large intestine, made up of the colon and rectum. In the colon, your gut bacteria digest some types of dietary fiber, producing vitamins and fatty acids that intestinal cells use to stay healthy. The colon also functions to remove water, causing waste to solidify into feces as it moves towards the rectum. Stool is stored in the rectum before being passed during a bowel movement. From the moment you see and smell food, the digestive process begins. Many contributing factors support healthy digestion, things we can control, like eating a healthy diet, exercise, and the intake of probiotics. To learn more, visit kavita.com.
Ooh,
To learn more, visit kavita.com.
what's going on? Right. So essentially, the one big thing, I guess, that comes out of that is that with your digestive system, it starts in the mouth. So your digestive system literally starts here. As soon as you smell or you see something that's really delicious, you get an increase in saliva, right? Now, the increase in saliva is really important because in your saliva, you actually have a digestive enzyme called amylase. Now, amylase is the little dude that helps your body break down carbohydrates. So ideally, majority of your food actually starts to get broken down in that upper part of the digestive system and in the stomach and the small intestines. So keep in mind too, your stomach should be so acidic that, you know, if I ate this pen, it would kind of chew up the pen. So your stomach acidity should kind of match a car battery, right? Now, the only food that really should be sneaking further down the digestive system into the large intestines is actually specific types of fiber, resistant starch. Now, resistant starch is really important. I'm going to get into sources of resistant starch and how much I think we should all be trying to eat. What resistant starch does is it feeds all of the bacteria that's living in your gut. And remember, the bacteria that lives in your gut impacts every single body system, not just your digestive system. So it also impacts metabolic health, cardiovascular health, your nervous system. So it has a really big role in terms of mood, sleep, you name it, and the gut's involved. And I wanted to point out this quote that was stated many years ago by a very clever dude, Hippocrates, and he recognized that all disease begins in the gut. You might have heard the word gut microbiome. It's kind of getting thrown around a lot. All your microbiome is it is just a big community of organisms. And when we're talking about organisms, it's bacteria, it's parasites, it's yeasts, etc. Now, your gut microbiome is completely unique to you. So it is as unique as your fingerprint. And that's, again, I guess, when there's so much marketing of probiotics and people are spending so much money on stuff like that, it's pretty easy when you stop to think that it's that unique, that one strain of probiotics or a few strains of probiotics are probably not going to match your gut microbiome. So most individuals have about 200-300 species of different bacteria living in their gut, and that's a good thing. Now, the human body is made up of 39 trillion microorganisms. Most of them are bacteria. So to put that in perspective, the human body is actually made up of more bacteria than it even is of human cells. Majority of the bacteria actually resides in the gut. So an example that I sometimes like to get my patients to think of is, picture a 2 kilo bag of rice. Like, that is a whopper of a bag, and it's heavy, right? So 2 kilos of bacteria is living in your gut right now. And essentially what we're feeding it is either going to heal us and support our health, or it's going to challenge our health. So your gut microbiome is impacted by a huge number of things. Diet plays a huge role. Medication's a big one, because yes, the liver has a very big role in terms of metabolizing toxins. However, 25% of detoxification actually occurs upstream in the gut before it gets to the liver. Stress, and that kind of goes without saying, often what we start to see, so in your gut microbiome, you want this beautiful little ratio of goodies and baddies. Now, of the goodies, you want about 80% of the 2 kilos of bacteria and parasites living in your gut to be goodies. And you may have heard of some of them, like lactobacilli. 20% of the guys that are hanging out in your gut should be challenging bacteria, like Candida or E. coli. So when people say to me, "Oh, Olivia, I've got Candida," I go, "That's okay. Look, we should all have Candida. The issue is that you might have had an overgrowth." And so what a big thing that happens with stress and antibiotics is the goodies start to actually drop, which means that the baddies, they're also known as opportunistic. They look for any opportunity to run amok. They can start to take over and build up their army. I often describe the 80-20 as like the adults and the kids. So the adults need to maintain control and authority in society. We love children. They're lovely. They challenge us, but we actually don't want them taking over the show. Some other things that impact your gut microbiome and your goodie and your baddie ratio: exercise, aging, and genetics does play a role. So some really common signs that your digestive system, your gut microbiome is out of whack. Usually you'll feel localized symptoms. So that could be IBS. So it could be bloating, bowel irregularities, constipation, diarrhea, food sensitivities. A big one that's also associated with that can be headaches or migraines. So typically that's like the red flag where your body's saying something's happening. And if you go back to that little refresher on Digestive Health 101, it spoke about your gut lining. And so it is really healthy for those small digested molecules to get through the gut lining and get into the bloodstream. Because we want some of the molecules cruising around the blood so it can go and nourish all the cells. So that's like your water, it's your iron, it's your magnesium, etc. What happens for a lot of us when our guts become inflamed or stressed, what happens is we get larger undigested molecules leaking through the gut wall into the bloodstream. As an example, gluten, casein. So, you get some of those ones that you may have heard of. And that then drives that inflammation and more of that digestive discomfort. I wanted to pretty quickly mention the role that your gut plays with your mood. So I've listed here that anxiety, depression, and mood swings are a sign of digestive dysfunction. To give you an example, serotonin is your happy hormone. It's like your loved up feel good hormone. It's actually manufactured in the gut. So 95% of serotonin lives in the gut. Now, both anxiety and depression are linked with serotonin deficiency. So again, if you want to actually support the body and address the causes, one of the things you'll want to look at is optimizing digestive function so that your body's naturally creating and holding better quality hormones. Another neurotransmitter that I like to mention is called GABA. So GABA is known as the brakes in the brain. Kind of slows everything down. And for anyone that experiences anxiety, they feel really overwhelmed quite easily, panic attacks, etc., they can actually take GABA. and it can be prescribed by a naturopath. And you know what? It's a very effective short-term quick fix. I often call that the Band-Aid. We can kind of patch up what's going on, but on a deeper level, GABA is made in the gut and also the brain. So again, if we can support the digestive system with exercise and a good diet, and I'm going to break down what a good diet is shortly, that's naturally going to help longer term. Fatigue. And so fatigue is a big one. Some of your B vitamins, and your B vitamins are your energy vitamins. Some of your B vitamins are made in the gut. A big one is folate, which is vitamin B9. Now, 40% of your daily requirements of folate can be made in the gut if your gut's working well, which is really cool. I promise I'm going to speed up and I'm not going to go this slowly over each topic. Sleep. Immune dysfunction. So again, with immune, your immune system, majority of your immune cells live in the gut. So over 75% of your immune cells are residing in the gut. So again, as we support gut function, you're going to help modulate immunity. Allergic conditions, which is very closely linked with immune dysfunction. Insulin issues and weight gain. There's a very clear link between a more diverse gut microbiome. So remember, you want hundreds of those different types of species, because each species that lives in your gut does a different job in the body. And there are a couple of specific species that help regulate insulin and also help with your appetite signaling. So there's leptin and ghrelin. And leptin is the hormone that says to your brain, like, girl, you are full, like, stop eating. And so as you improve your digestive health, a big comment that a lot of my patients will make is, one, they're not as hungry as often as they used to be, or two, they don't have as many sugar or carb cravings, which is quite cool. So chronic inflammation, hormonal issues, and again, so many of your hormones are made in the gut. Brain fog and poor memory. And again, this is because of the link to, remember that your digestive system is part of the nervous system. So it's very interconnected. So let's talk now about poo. I have a few brothers, so it's pretty easy for me to talk about poo, and my kids. So they developed a chart that can help you understand how your digestion, your absorption and elimination is going based on what's presenting in the bowl. So there's 7 different types. I'll walk you through the kiddies version and then I'll tell you the boring professional version. So you've got type 1 to type 7. Type 1 essentially looks like small little pellets. It's described as rabbit droppings. They're hard. I mean, these are hard lumps. Often there's straining that's involved. And typically you won't be doing these daily. You know, it could be every second day or even every third day. Type 2 is starting to become solid, but it's like a whole bunch of pellets are just smooshed together and it's a big bunch of grapes. Still hard to pass. Type 3, kind of looking a bit like a corn on the cob. So it's like a sausage with some cracks in it, but it's well formed. Type 4 is the dream. It's the sausage. So really, a really healthy bowel movement would be type 4, where it's long, it's held together, it's well formed, and ideally it's actually sinking. Type 5, little bit different to the rabbit droppings. These are kind of loose bowel movements. So they're usually a bit bigger than droppings and they're more chicken nuggety. Type 6, it's starting to go like mush. So I love the explanation here of porridge. You can just picture that, can't you? And type 7, gravy. So sitting on the loo and it's just kind of spurting out and you usually lack control and it's essentially liquid. So type 1, as I said, is constipated. Type 2, still very sluggish bowels. So big thing you want to be doing there, water. Water's amazing for softening your stools, fiber, omega-3 fats. And when you move your body, it actually supports and helps move the contents down through the rectum. Type 3 is good. Type 4 is amazing. Your poop is perfect. Type 5 would be on the runny side. So again, a big thing you'd be wanting to increase is specific types of fiber, but my favorite would probably be resistant starch, which would be potatoes, and probiotic rich food. Type 6, you're starting to get towards more of the diarrhea, which also means that you're actually not going to be holding on to some of the nutrients in your food. So you could be eating all these beautiful foods, but your body won't necessarily be absorbing those nutrients correctly because it's just moving through you too quickly. And type 7 is classified as diarrhea. Now, how often should you poo? They actually don't, the medical world don't have a norm. They've kind of described it as you should be doing at least 3 bowel movements a week to moving your bowels, 3 bowel movements a week up to twice a day. My recommendation, I try to get patients doing at least 1 bowel movement per day, which is really important from an elimination point of view, particularly women. Excess estrogen is a hormone that we don't want to continue to cruise around the body and get reabsorbed. It can cause a lot of hormonal issues and also weight gain. So daily bowel movements is great, and 2 is the dream. So that's the goal. When you get off this, that's what I want you imagining. So let's talk about the Poo-Fetch plate. So essentially, to keep it really simple, every single day your body requires nutrients. You can break those nutrients up into 3 main categories, and they are called macronutrients, which is your protein, your carbs, and your fats. I've actually labeled them in order of priority from a digestive and hormonal point of view. So protein. I want to teach you to think about portion sizes using your hands. I do not believe in weighing your food or counting calories. As a naturopath and as a nutritionist, I believe in teaching people longer term solutions, which is to actually eat intuitively. It's to start to count nutrients, and it's to start to become more aware of what's going on to each plate. So we still want to be aware of portion sizes because we don't want to be underdoing it and we don't want to be overdoing it. So with protein, you want to have a palm-sized portion of protein at every single meal. If you were to have a snack, and really from a digestive point of view, most people benefit from having meals, not snacks. And every single time you snack, your body has to release insulin, right? Because insulin goes up as the blood sugar level increases, insulin's released. Insulin essentially grabs the glucose, knocks on the cell wall and says, dude, I've got glucose, let me in and I can come in and nourish the cells. And that's good if it's happening, every kind of 4 hours, which I typically say is meal. You should be eating every 4 hours, which for most people is 3 meals a day, and it could be a snack. But if you're snacking and eating or grazing more frequently than that, then you're going to have elevated levels of insulin. And again, that can just, for women, it can really start, insulin's a hormone, so you can throw out your whole hormone picture. It can impact thyroid function, and it can put your body in a fat storage metabolic state, which we don't want. So palm-sized portion of protein at every meal. Now, that is not a piece of steak 3 times a day. Just so you're aware, this is animal protein sources and non-animal protein sources. So it does include nuts, seeds, eggs, seafood, beans, lentils, legumes, quinoa, meat, chicken, etc. So that's protein. Fat, you want to have fat at every single meal. You want to have, I'd say, a thumb serving size of fat, which is equivalent to about a tablespoon. So a lot of people think of oils as a form of fat. Oils are great. Go old school, use your olive oil. I do love other sources of oil. Coconut oil is good. I feel like it gets overdone. So, use it, bust it out a couple of times a week. But extra virgin cold pressed olive oil is probably the best for most of us because it's high in your omega-3s. Also, avocado is brilliant, but you wouldn't want to be stingy. So, probably half an avocado if it's a small one, or if it's a large one, maybe a third would be 1 serve. Nuts and seeds count as both fat and as protein. The last macronutrient is carbohydrates. Now, when I'm talking about carbs, I am totally talking about vegetables, including white potato and sweet potato. Excuse me. I am a huge fan of spuds. We have them pretty much every single night in our house. And the reason I love them is because they are an amazing source of fiber. They're resistant starch. So you're getting in carbs, but they're also full of a lot of nutrients. Now, it's recommended by the government, so I didn't make up this number, but the government recommends that you should try to have 6 serves of vegetables every single day. So that would be equivalent to about 6 cups of veggies every day, which is a lot. So at every single meal, you want to try to have about 2 good handfuls of salad or veg. If you're thinking, oh my gosh, Olivia, where is bread? Where is pasta? All of that's okay. The priority, I would say, is vegetables. Always should be, always will be. And like I said, that does include peas, carrots, pumpkin, sweet potato, white potato. It does include the starchy veg. And then at least once a day, you're probably going to want to incorporate another type of carb. It could be oats. It could be rice. It could be something else like that. And this I just thought was a really easy, good example. Avo, you've got greens. Egg, you're getting protein and you're getting fat, and you've got a good quality carb there. With bread, my recommendation, if people love bread, up to once a day is probably doable for most people, but you probably don't want to go crazy. There's something called the crowding out or crowding in factor. And essentially, when you focus on these 3 macronutrients, as adults, we naturally start crowding out the other foods, the processed foods, the heavy wheat-based foods, the sugar. When I'm talking about processed, anything that's in a glass jar, cardboard box, it's being processed. So my philosophy around food is just to go back to trying to eat more whole foods. So eating foods in their whole form, which essentially it's how our bodies were designed. Our bodies haven't really evolved on a cellular level. So our bodies are not actually equipped to be dealing with the amount of processed foods, caffeine, alcohol, fast foods, bread-based products, etc., day in, day out. And a really big one that I'm seeing all the time now is preservatives. So, just when if you're eating something that's packaged, don't judge yourself. It's okay every now and then. I say just turn the jar over and have a little look. If you see numbers or any words you can't pronounce, they've used preservatives. And some preservatives are more harmful than others. I try to steer clear of colours. So colours are labelled as 100 up to 199. And colours are still considered safe in Australia. It won't be that way for long. In Europe, colours are considered unsafe. And so if there's any colours added into any products, which is typically in, it's even in bread. So I have an example, I should have had it here, sorry, but the Mission wraps have a spinach wrap, and they don't actually add spinach in, guys, to the wrap. They use a colouring to get it green. But it's in a lot of lollies and things like that. But in Europe, if they're using any colours in any packaging, it says in big bold letters, warning, may cause hyperactivity in children and immune issues. I do love Aldi, and one of the reasons I love Aldi is not only because it's cheap and cheerful, but they're actually the first supermarket that said, no, we are not going to support any brand that has colours. If it has any of the 100 numbers, you're out. You're not welcome in here, which is actually really cool. And like I said, it's actually a step above where the regulations are at the moment in Australia, but we're always the last in the world. So we will follow. It's just a matter of when. So I've spoken a little bit about resistant starch. What the heck am I talking about? So resistant starch is just that. Resistant starch means it resists digestion in the stomach and the small intestines. So remember, it resists digestion in that first part of the digestive process, and it cruises on down to the large intestines. Now remember, you've got 2 kilos of gut bugs that are sitting there praying every single day. They're saying Christy and Susie and any other names that have popped up that I'm not reading. It's saying, please feed me, because your body cannot produce resistant starch. So every single day, your gut bugs are waiting for you to feed them. When you feed them oats, potatoes, lentils, legumes, rice, I'll get into them, what they do is they start munching on that resistant starch, and they're then able to create short-chain fatty acids. The hero short-chain fatty acid is called butyrate, and butyrate is the preferred fuel source for the cells that line the intestines. And butyrate not only has huge improvements for digestive health and actually easing a lot of common digestive complaints, Butyrate plays a huge role in terms of modulating immune function, reducing allergies, even reducing your LDL, which is your bad cholesterol. So this short chain fatty acid impacts so many other body systems when we are actually eating the correct amount of resistant starch. And I mean, I'm going to go off on a tangent, but something that I'm really aware of is so many women these days are going on ketogenic diets. They're doing paleo diet. They're doing these long or crazy fasting diets, and they're doing these diets that are very restrictive of resistant starch. And it's not uncommon for me to have patients that might do a poo every 3 or 4 days, or every single day they've got chronic headaches, or they're doing all the right things and, you know, they're putting on 1 kilo a month. And so often it can seem unrelated, but as soon as we start talking about what they're putting into their body, and that's probably the first thing I say, what are you eating? It's really interesting when they're starving their gut bugs. Now, when you starve your gut bugs and you don't eat resistant starch sources, the gut bugs become really peeved off. And there's only 2 options for them. One, if they're lucky enough, some protein may not have been digested in the stomach and small intestine, and it's made its way to the large intestines. So the gut bugs may be able to eat that. Otherwise, what they do is they turn to the mucus lining, which should be really thick, because you want to have a thick mucus lining that's a barrier between your gut and the blood. But what the gut bugs will do is they will turn and they will start munching on your mucus lining. Now, remember, I mentioned before, your intestinal lining is really important. It keeps the pathogens out, and it's what ensures that only those small digested molecules, so if protein's being broken down into amino acids, etc., can get through the gut wall into the bloodstream. We don't want undigested proteins exiting the gut, and we don't want toxins also getting out of the gut into the bloodstream. A big thing that happens there is the immune system kind of comes along and it goes, what the heck are you doing in the blood? And that's when you get this inflammatory response. Give me a high fiver. So what are short chain fatty acids good for? And particularly butyrate, which, as I said, he's like the Batman of all of your fatty acids. Big one is aiding digestion. They heal and seal the gut wall. So they are what supports that nice thick mucus lining, because the gut bugs don't need to munch on it. Short chain fatty acids reduce inflammation. They are proven to be protective against bowel cancer. They can lower overall cholesterol levels and your LDL, your bad cholesterol levels. They're very supportive of insulin levels and so much more. I was just trying to break it down into a short list. So what should you be eating? Resistant starch is in underripe bananas, potatoes. The resistant starch content nearly doubles, actually even more, about 2.5, when you cook your potatoes and you let them cool. Have you ever put rice or pasta in the fridge overnight before? And you go back in the morning, just think about what happens. It all kind of expands and goes smudgy and like thick. That's essentially the resistant starch. Oats are a great source of resistant starch. Legumes, so beans, lentils, etc. And also some of your grains. I'm a big fan of rice and quinoa. Just because I wanted to get into the nitty-gritty, this is a little chart I'm going to send you. I have this up on my website with a specific blog. So don't worry, I'm actually going to email you through the link so that you guys can access this little chart. But how much resistant starch do you need? The goal is about 20 grams of resistant starch per day. If you really want to optimize digestive health, that's where it's at. So I wanted just to kind of walk you through some of the biggies, but how you cook food, and depending on how ripe it is, can really impact the resistant starch. A really good example is bananas. So when it says underripe, if you eat a banana and it's still slightly green, it has nearly 5 grams of resistant starch in one banana. So that's 25% of your daily requirement. Now, if you eat a ripe banana, the resistant starch has dropped dramatically down to 1 gram. So something else that I recommend you do is buy your bananas when they're underripe. I actually will often freeze. I'll go home, I'll peel a couple of underripe ones, cut them up and put them in the freezer. And that way I can use them in banana bread, smoothies, etc. And, excuse me, when I'm using them, I'm using the underripe ones that has the high amount of resistant starch, because so often we use overripe bananas for cooking and smoothies and stuff. Peas, so half a cup of peas is 2 grams of resistant starch. Rice, half a cup of cooked rice is 1.5 grams of resistant starch. Lentils, so half a cup is 2.5 grams. Split peas is similar. Chickpeas again is similar. Now oats, I wanted to show you that when you cook oats, so kind of like a porridge, half a cup, which is typically 1 serve, you've got virtually 0 resistant starch. However, if you have uncooked oats, so you know, if you just soak them or make a bircher muesli, one of the things I'll often do is I'll add some raw oats to a smoothie. But half a cup of oats that's been soaked or not cooked is 8.5 grams of resistant starch, which is really cool. Cashew nuts, one of the best nuts, right? So 50 grams is 7 grams of resistant starch. 50 grams is actually probably more than 1 serve. So typically 1 serve of nuts and seeds is usually like a decent handful, which is about 30 grams. So 30 grams of cashews is probably more like 5 grams of resistant starch. Potatoes, 100 grams, so just a medium-sized white potato, just steamed or boiled is about 6 grams, and roasted and cooled, it should say and cooled as well, roasted and cooled is nearly 20 grams of resistant starch. So one of the things that I'm a big fan of is just once a week, putting a whole baking tray full of pumpkin, white potato, sweet potato in the oven, roasting up a tray of veggies. You can use half that night, and then you can save some and just add it into salads, soups, whatever you're eating for the next few days, because once it's cooled, you can still reheat it, but you're going to get the added benefit of still having the nutrients, but it's going to be that much higher in resistant starch. So have a little list and just pick out a couple of options there for you that you can start committing to trying to eat every single day. Deep breath. So now we're going to get into the gut healing protocol. Some of the things we've spoken about are really they're gonna come up over and over as we kind of move through this. I'm probably going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes walking you through the gut healing protocol. As you've probably guessed by now, because we all live in the real world where there's pollution, there's EMFs, I mean, we all use Wi-Fi and phones. Most of us will at some point eat processed foods, fast foods, coffee, drink alcohol, just be human beings. No one really will have optimal digestive function. No one will have a perfect gut, and that's okay. So for most of us, what I actually recommend is every single day being aware of what we're eating and just consciously trying to pick foods that are always going to help our digestive system. So everyone can benefit from this gut healing protocol when you think of it like that. It can be used as more of a preventative and well-being protocol. So the first thing is reducing or removing irritants and inflammatory foods. You can probably guess the most inflammatory foods for the gut are foods that are foreign, which essentially, as I said, are high sugar, processed foods, wheat-based foods. Second thing that we want to do is replace those key nutrients and factors that are often lost. So if there are imbalances or deficiencies, we want to address those ASAP. The third thing is repair your intestinal lining, seal and heal that gut wall, and support and optimize your gut function. The fourth stage is re-inoculate and replenish your gut microbiome. So the reduce stage. This is where we are just, like I said earlier, we're removing those irritants and we're removing foods that exacerbate and disrupt your intestinal lining and throw out your gut bugs. So a big one here is food intolerances, and a really simple example I like to give is dairy. So 60% of the population have a reduced ability to actually digest lactase. Now lactase is lactose. So 60% of the population have reduced ability to break down lactose, and that's because our body stops producing lactase effectively. So once we reach the age of 2, most of us should be off breast milk, and if you're a breastfeeding mother and you're still going, that's totally fine. I'm not judging you, but that's I guess, the theory. So after the age of 2, the human body stops producing lactase, the enzyme to help you break down lactose, because we're the only species left on the planet that continue to drink milk as adults. Now, most people can't break down your lactose dairy products very well. So the most common symptoms that I see there would be bloating and diarrhea. Just on that note though, very similar chemical structure to human breast milk is A2. So A2 is naturally your sheep's, your goat's, your buffalo. So most of us can break them down, and they're significantly lower in your lactose, which is really good. But for now, just focus on your processed foods. That's kind of the biggies. And go back to that crowding out mentality, where when you're focusing on eating veggies, fruits, your beautiful resistant starch, your good fats, your oily fish, your eggs, your high quality protein, you're naturally not going to, you can't physically eat more and kind of keep going with the regular processed foods that you continue to eat. Replacing. So this is the one where I said before, it's just important to be aware of replacing common deficiencies and factors that compromise digestion. So going back to what we saw in the video and what I mentioned earlier, digestive enzymes help the body break down all of your macronutrients, your fats, your carbs, and your protein. And remember how important it is to smell food and to look at it. And I know it's hard sometimes and we're hungry or we feel greedy and we just kind of gobble it up while we're sitting at our desk, but you actually haven't allowed the digestive system to start taking place, and you haven't allowed that saliva to start doing its job. Digestive enzymes can ease any type of digestive complaint, really. You can take digestive enzymes in a supplemented form, but my favorite natural form is apple cider vinegar. And apple cider vinegar is fermented apples. If you have 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar with just a little dribble of water, so maybe 20-30 mils of water, shot it down and take it about 5 or 10 minutes before a main meal, you will naturally increase your body's production of those digestive enzymes, which will help you break down the food that you're about to eat. So something that I get patients to do when I start seeing them is I just get them to leave apple cider vinegar on the kitchen bench, and definitely before brekkie, and if they can remember before dinner, have a little shot of it with some water, and at least for 5 minutes, and allow that beautiful digestive system to kind of start taking place. Now, it tastes really bitter. Apple cider vinegar is bitter. It is not yummy. Bitter is also really important because bitter foods stimulate the bitter taste receptors, which also increases that saliva in the mouth. And remember, when we increase our saliva, the saliva contains the amylase, which is the digestive enzyme that helps your body break down your carbs. Bitter foods do so much more than that. So bitter foods, as I said before, they promote saliva, which I've discussed. They also support a hormone gastrin, and this is the guy that actually stimulates your stomach acid. Now, 90% of people that experience reflux have low stomach acid. It's very uncommon that I see someone with too much stomach acid. And that's because of the foods that we're eating. Something else that bitter foods do is they support the production of bile. Think of bile as your detergent, where it essentially goes in, it breaks down and emulsifies your fats. So bitter is really cool because it supports stomach acid to help your body break down protein. It supports bile to help your body break down fats. And it supports saliva production to help your body break down your carbs. So you've got your carbs, your fats, your protein sorted. Just from a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Now, here is your, here is your top healthy bitter foods. I'll let you kind of read them, but there's apple cider vinegar, artichoke, rocket is what we call it here, melon, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, chicory, coffee, make sure it's a good quality organic one, cranberries, dandelion greens, even dark chocolate. You know, if you've ever had, when I'm talking dark chocolate, I mean, you'd really want to be, 70% would be the minimum, ideally around 85%. And you know what it's like, it's pretty bitter. Dill, eggplant, endives, grapefruit, ginger, kale. Kale is very bitter. Mint, saffron, sesame seeds. So So if you, again, just look at that list and scribble in at least 4 or 5 different bitter foods that you can try to increase your consumption of throughout the day, would be really useful. The third stage of the gut healing protocol is we want to repair. So as I said, the first 2 stages are all about you're kind of cleansing, you're speeding up the elimination, the detoxification process. Then we come in with stage 3 and 4, which is nourishing, and we're repairing. So we want to repair that gut lining, which is your key barrier between your gut and your bloodstream. You might have heard of leaky gut, and I wanted to explain to you what that is. So leaky gut is just that. It's where contents, food, toxins, waste material starts leaking through the gut wall and it gets into the bloodstream. The medical term, anyway, doesn't matter. But this can present as bloating, digestive discomfort, headaches, migraines, mood swings, etc. One of the best things you can do to help nourish and repair your gut wall is slow down. Like I said before, I know that we often just are eating on the run, we're eating at our desk. We're often, you know, the times that you can eat something and you're distracted, and then you look down and it's almost like someone else ate your meal. You're like, where did it go? I didn't eat it. Yeah, you actually did, but you weren't aware of it. So when you slow down and you chew your food, you do a few things. One, you improve the digestive process, because your food should be pretty much liquid before you even swallow it. So the ideal is that you do 28 chews per mouthful on average. It's a lot. Something that I recommend is next time you're eating, so it could either be dinner tonight or brekkie in the morning, when you're next eating, just count how many chews you do per mouthful. Obviously, it can vary a little bit depending on what you're eating, but I find most people would do 5, 6, 7 chews per mouthful. So whatever you do, double it. So if you do 6 chews per mouthful, make a commitment and go. And it's a really fun one to do with a friend or with a child or with a partner or something like that. And go, how many chews are you doing? And just say to them, okay, we need to start doubling it so that we're actually supporting digestion and we're slowing down. Something I recommend is when you increase food, some specific foods help repair your gut lining and just heal that leaky gut, which is the medical term is intestinal permeability. Now, zinc-rich foods are really important. Zinc plays a big role in the body in terms of wound healing, skin, hair, nails, nervous system, but zinc's really important for supporting that actual intestinal health. Glutamine is another one, which is an amino acid, which I'm about to explain in just a minute. And also your bitter foods and your brassica family veggies. So brassica family is your broccoli, your cauliflower, your Brussels sprouts, your kale, etc. And it's kind of cool because a lot of your bitter foods are also, the veggies are also from your brassica family. Don't forget your goal is 6 veggies per day, every single day for the rest of your life. So if we go a step further, I really struggled to only keep the list at 5, but I wanted to develop some simple tools you can use and foods you can start to eat from that list of everything we've gone through. First thing is apple cider vinegar. And like I said, it's awesome because it's a bitter and it's also a prebiotic. Now, a prebiotic is food for your probiotics. So just take it before brekkie and even any other main meals. My second recommendation is bone broth. Bone broth is where you boil bones for at least 24 hours. They can be fish bones, chicken bones, beef bones. And what happens is you also add in a little dash of apple cider vinegar. And apple cider vinegar and the water that the bones are cooking in help extract the minerals from the bones, and the liquid that you're left with after 24 hours is really rich in glutamine, that amino acid I spoke about before, and proline. So proline is helps the body's production of collagen, which again support overall digestive function, but really in terms of that intestinal lining. I've got a bone broth recipe to give you. Third recommendation is fermented foods. I guess if I had to simplify it, I would say start with sauerkraut. Sauerkraut's cool because it's a bitter food and it's also fermented. So it's kind of a double whammy. I've got a sauerkraut recipe for you as well. Fourth recommendation is resistant starch. So there, just remember, resistant starch, feed those cells that line the intestinal wall. Oats, potatoes, bananas, beans, peas, and quinoa would be my personal top ones. We don't eat much rice in our house. Just, I don't think my hubby and I kind of grew up with a lot of rice, but if you're a rice person, rice is still a great form of resistant starch. Fifth, gut healing food, and just in general, it's your omega-3 fats. So your omega-3 fats are very effective for combating inflammation. They actually activate the anti-inflammatory pathway. So they're a natural pain relief option. Your fats are really important to also not just repair your gut, but also nourish your nervous system. So fats play a really important role in terms of hormone health. The outside layer of your hormones is made up of fat. So you need to have good quality fats coming into the diet so your body can produce good quality hormones. So my favorite omega-3s, avo, walnuts, olive oil, oily fish. So with oily fish, it's salmon, trout, tuna, herring, sardines. Those little oily ones are really good. Hemp seeds and flax seeds would probably be the top ones. And so the fourth stage is, like I said, this is where we're replenishing the gut. This is where we just want to promote a thriving and diverse gut microbiome. So this is where we want lots of prebiotics. Now, one of the best prebiotics is apple cider vinegar and resistant starch and berries. And I guess if you said to me what's more important, prebiotics or probiotics, I'd probably say prebiotics. So think of your gut microbiome as a house. Let's just run with that analogy for now. So it's a house, and the house is a pigsty. The prebiotic is when you can actually go in and you do the spring clean, right? So you actually kind of go in and you support the entire structure. Your probiotics is where you go in and you just do, the superficial clean where you like wipe a bench down and you can see the grime, but you never actually attend to it. So when people take a probiotic, they can take lots of probiotics, but if they're not changing the actual structure of the environment, they're really not going to get the longer term results. So prebiotics is definitely the foundation. You want to improve your microbiome composition, the function of your healthy gut flora and gut barrier, by choosing probiotics that are suited to you. Now that can be probiotic foods and it can also be probiotics in a supplemented form. Please be aware that different probiotic strains do different jobs in the body. So when I sit down with a patient, depending on their symptoms, I will prescribe a specific probiotic. There are generic probiotics, but think of them as like generic antibiotics. So, you can take amoxicillin and it's just like, we hope it's going to work. We don't really know. Maybe we haven't done a swab. We haven't given you a specific strain to do a specific job in the body. It's kind of the same if you just go and buy like an Inner Health Plus or just one of the ones at a pharmacy. It's got a few strains in it. You're like, oh, cool, I'm taking a probiotic. You're kind of going, oh, I hope you work. You're broad spectrum. I have no idea really if you're going to work. So it's why I would say, take a probiotic, absolutely, they're incredible, under the supervision of a health practitioner. Otherwise, focus on eating probiotic-rich foods. So to maintain general gut health, I would be recommending 10 billion CFU, which is colony-forming units per day. If you are unwell, if you need therapeutic support, if you're just not functioning at optimum, you're probably going to need 20 billion. So I'm going to go through a few different foods, but my top 4 gut healing recipes, and 3 of them are incredibly high in probiotics, which I've got a fermented fruit recipe to share with you. I actually got my kids to all have a few mouthfuls of peaches tonight. But this is fermented peaches I shoved in a cinnamon stick and a few cloves. And that's it. It takes about 48 hours. And then you have this beautiful, tangy, bubbly, sour fruit. All that I put in there is I put in water. You're meant to use bottled water. I don't. I could use good old tap water and it honestly works each time, so it's fine. And you can do a few tablespoons of whey, or you can buy a coconut water kefir, which I'll walk you through. Over here, I've got a labna, which is a strained yogurt. Down the bottom on the right is a sauerkraut, which is just a pickled cabbage. And on the bottom left is a bone broth. So I'm going to email you through these 4 recipes. Labna is also known as Lebanese cream cheese. It is strained yogurt. You make it at home. You literally need 1 ingredient, guys. It's less than 5 minutes of prep. Once you've made it, then you can use it as a dip, as a spread, as an appetizer. My youngest child is 18 months and she's just obsessed with dipping. So I'll often just give her labna on the side of lunch or dinner, and she just uses it for anything and everything. With labna, all you do is you use a yogurt. I would typically buy a full fat Greek yogurt with 0 sugar. My favorite brand is Yalna. They have a really nice Greek yogurt and a biodynamic organic Greek yogurt. Or you could use a goat's yogurt if you wanted, and you put it in a cheesecloth bag. Now, years ago when I didn't have a cheesecloth bag, I used a chucks, you know, the old school blue chuckses. So you put the dollop of the yogurt in the chucks, you fold the chucks up by the corners, and then you secure it. I usually used a hairband to secure it, and you hang it up. When I say hang it up, I would tie it to 2 ends of like a spoon, and you're just allowing the yogurt to strain essentially. And so you get water, like residue, that comes out of the yogurt and drips into the bottom bowl. Save what's left in the bowl. That's your whey, which is really precious because you can use that in another recipe. You're meant to leave it overnight. Sometimes I make a labna in a couple of hours if I've got people coming over and I've got nothing to serve. And you can sprinkle anything you want on it. You can put paprika, you can put cumin. I've done za'atar. You can add in olives. It is so versatile. If you are brand new to the world of gut health and fermenting, I would recommend you start with labna and or sauerkraut. They're probably the 2 easiest. As I said, I'm going to send you through a full recipe, and I'm going to show you how I strain my yogurt, which is not glamorous at all. It just hangs in the kitchen. Second one is sauerkraut. So the way I make sauerkraut, I literally just use cabbage and salt, and that's it. I don't put anything else in it. You can always add in caraway seeds and things like that. To be honest, I tried making sauerkraut years ago and it always went moldy when I tried to add other stuff in. So again, just fairly recently, I've gone back to basics and I've been nailing the ferments because of that. So with sauerkraut, it's a bit of food, so it stimulates digestion. It's jam-packed with probiotics, iron, and vitamin C. So back in the days when the sailors were on ships for months and months and they didn't have the air transport, they used to eat jars of sauerkraut, which would actually prevent them from developing scurvy because it's still so high in vitamin C. So how I make sauerkraut is the other day I was at, I don't know, it was Woolies or Coles, and I saw must have been Woolies, it had a Macro Organics cabbage, which looked pretty old and manky, was like 70% off or something ridiculous. So I grabbed it. So I think the cabbage probably cost me $2. I do recommend you buy an organic or a pesticide-free cabbage. So even just from a farmer's market, because all you do is you wash it, you cut the cabbage up really finely. And for half a cabbage, I put it in a bowl, chopped up finely, and I add in about a tablespoon of Himalayan salt or some type of really nice sea salt. And then you massage the salt into the cabbage. This takes about 5 minutes and it's hard work. You kind of get writer's cramp. And what happens is as you're massaging the cabbage, this liquid kind of leaves the cabbage. So you kind of keep going for about 5 minutes. That's it. You have a sterilized jar, like a jam jar. You shove the cabbage in and you're really packing it in, and you push the cabbage down just enough that the juices have just risen over the cabbage. And you close the lid and you pop it in the pantry and forget about it for at least 7 days. And after 7 to 14 days, you'll come back and sauerkraut will be ready. Leave it in the fridge and it'll last for months and months. And each time you eat it, you don't need a lot, guys. Like a tablespoon every second or third day is going to be adequate. Third one, and as I said, I've only started doing this one recently this summer, is fermenting your fruit. So you can see here that this is one of my recent ferments, which was peaches. But fruit is really high in sugar, which means it actually ferments really quickly. So pretty much within 24 hours it ferments. How I did this one was I got a couple of peaches, I cut them up, took the skin off, shoved them in a jar. I poured in tap water, like I said, And I did about 2 tablespoons of my whey from my labna. And then that was it. I wanted to add in some different herbs and spices. I didn't even have ginger. So I literally got a cinnamon stick, shoved it in, and a couple of cloves. And after 24 hours, it all starts bubbling, and it just, you take the lid off and it's kind of like magic. It's just like, and you eat it and it's kind of sour and fizzy. It's a beautiful sensation. I'm obsessed with adding peaches onto salads. So that's how I use peaches a lot, but the kids had it tonight. One of them had it stirred in with yogurt. So you can use it any way you want, even throw it into smoothies. But again, you can use mangoes, pineapples, banana, whatever you want to ferment your fruit. And you can add in any spices that you want. My last gut healing food is bone broth. And as I said, this is where you can simmer any bones for at least 24 hours. You want to just do it in water and a splash of apple cider vinegar, which will extract those beautiful minerals from the bones, put it into the liquid. Now, I do add in vegetables. I typically always add in onion and garlic, and then I open up my crisper, and any sad, limp-looking vegetables, I pop in. So the other day, I added in a carrot. I added in some broccoli stems. They were like dirty broccoli stems. And we've got a herb garden. So I literally grabbed like a handful of basil, a bit of oregano. I even think I threw some mint in. And that's it. I turn the slow cooker on for 24 hours and don't touch it. When you come back, you strain it, and the liquid that you're left with is your bone broth. And bone broth is, as I mentioned before, it's incredibly high in those different amino acids, including your proline, which helps with collagen, also with gelatin. Now, gelatin supports your overall structural health, so bones, joint, muscles, skin, hair, nails. Collagen is one of the fastest growing supplements that you can buy at the moment. I love collagen. I do have it as a supplement, but it's so cheap and easy to get it in a food form, which is bone broth. Bone broth's also really high in glycine. Glycine's a really beautiful amino acid, which calms the farm. It's really soothing to the nervous system. Glycine's a really effective amino acid. Again, you can take in a supplemented form if someone experiences kind of anxiety and overwhelm. I say a cup of bone broth a day keeps the naturopath away. I store my bone broth, usually I store it in ice cubes, and that way if I'm making up a bolognese, casserole, something like that, I can add in a few ice cubes. Otherwise, I just pour them out into some jars and freeze them. And whenever I'm making a soup, I can just grab a jar out and use it, which gives it so much flavor. I personally like to have a little stash of bone broth in the fridge, so that at like 2 or 3 p.m, when I feel like I want something, I actually just heat up the broth and I sit and sip it. Like a cup of tea, but it's just far more nourishing, if that makes sense. So 4 steps you can use to heal your gut today. So this is kind of the takeaways, because we've covered a lot. Focus on your perfect plate, which is your starchy carbs, it's your bitter foods, your veg, it's also your protein and your fats. Don't forget, we want you looking in the loo, and we want you looking at the Bristol stool chart to see how your body's going with all the food that you're eating. And I'm going to email you the chart. I do recommend meal planning. I find the only way to really, after something like this, to create healthy habits, when you hear this kind of information, you've got to write it down. And that's the beauty of meal planning, is you could just write in, maybe your first goal for the first week is to make a bone broth, or it's to buy a $2 cabbage and make sauerkraut in a jar. So just when I say meal plan, just work out what foods from tonight's webinar you want to start integrating into what you're already doing. The third thing I think is really useful is to just scribble down what you're eating. And with that, you can also record your resistant starch, and you can record your bowel habits. This is really useful too if down the track you wanted to work with a health practitioner. The first thing I ask patients is, what are you eating? What do your stools look like? How much starch are you having? And when you have that information, it gives me insight, but it's amazing how much insight you would get from that. Last recommendation is just get going with the fermented food. Even if you go and buy sauerkraut, just look on the back and you now know that the only ingredients should be cabbage and salt. If they add in vinegar, that's okay. But there should be no numbers. There shouldn't be anything else that's in there. Start with eating 1 fermented food per day. So it could be sauerkraut, it could be olives, it could be miso, it could be kombucha, it could be yogurt. So pick 1 fermented food and slowly work up to having 3 serves of fermented food each day, which would be ideal. So after tonight, I'm actually going to email you through some gut healing resources. I'm going to email you through my top 4 gut healing recipes, step by step, and I'm going to email you through that slide that went through the 4 steps to healing your gut. I'm going to email you through your own stool chart so you can start referring to that, a meal planner, which will really help, and I'm going to email you through a recording of tonight so that you can listen to it all again. Even if you're out for a walk or you're in the car, you can kind of just play it in the background. Don't look at me, obviously, if you're driving, but play it in the background. If you wanted to know more, if you feel like tonight is just kind of scratching the surface, or you've had ongoing gut issues and you're thinking, this all sounds so interesting, where to from here, I just want to spend a few minutes to let you know that we can help. So I am here as a naturopath and nutritionist to help you figure out what is going on in your gut. I don't have a generic approach. It has to be personalized because you'll have your own symptoms and you've got your own gut microbiome. I wanted to send you a personal invitation to a program that is called the Gut Club. So the Gut Club has just opened up the first intake for 2020. It is a program that I have designed. It's a 4-week online program. So with the Gut Club, I created this because you deserve vitality and vibrancy, which quite simply, it includes regular poops and happy guts. So the Gut Club is a 4-week program that gives you a really simple, no fuss and doable, personalized approach for healing your gut, optimal digestion, elimination, moods, and also weight management. So over the 4 weeks, the Gut Club includes 3 one-on-one online naturopathic nutrition consultations. With that, you also get personalized meal ideas, recipes, shopping lists, etc. So I give you all of the practical tools you need to actually implement what's recommended. You get ongoing email support between consultations. Every single week, the Gut Clubbers, we nerd out with a weekly learning module, which typically goes for about an hour. And then we also have a weekly live Q&A tutorial where we can break down different concepts and topics and case studies. As I mentioned, it's personalized meal plans and recipes. We do have a Gut Club workbook, which includes a meal planner, a diet diary. It's got a shopping list. It's got a daily gut healing protocol. So it's got kind of all the bits and pieces that you need. We have a private Facebook group, so you've got lots of support and kind of accountability partners and more. There is the option of adding on a poo test, which is Australia's most comprehensive gut microbiome test, and it's through a company called Microbiome. There's 2 different levels that are available. So the Silver Gut package includes those 3 consultations, the email with me, the workbook, the Facebook group, the tutorials and the modules. And the Gold Gut Club package includes all of that. Plus you can see here, you also get a free ebook, which includes more information and more gut healing recipes. So you get a total of 10, and it includes the gut microbiome test, the poo test. Now this poo test is incredible. It is the easiest, most discreet, non-invasive stool test. Essentially you do a poo, you wipe your bottom, and then you get like a cotton earbud and you get a tiny swab of your feces. And that's all you need. You then pop it in a container and we send it off to the lab, and they then interpret your results based on that. So it gives us an entire blueprint of the bacteria, the yeast, the parasites that are residing in your gut, and we can see what your body is doing with the food that you're eating. So we see all of your digestive markers, we see what's happening on absorption, gut motility, so elimination level, and it walks us through all of the different metabolites and how they interact with the different body systems. So we see nervous system, immune system, metabolic health, inflammation, detoxification. It's pretty comprehensive. It's a 12-page report. I just covered all of that. This test by itself is normally priced at $3.99. So that's what it costs in the clinic. So the Silver Gut package is $540 for that 1 month of support. Gold Gut package is $7.95. Now, keep in mind the Gold Gut package includes the gut microbiome test, which is normally individually priced at $3.99. So as you can see too, with the Silver Gut package and the Gold, you are making considerable savings in terms of what it's valued at. There are payment options available, and I do like to let you know that I back the program, and I've backed previous gut clubbers and future gut clubbers so much that there's 100% money back guarantee. So I just wanted to remove kind of the risk for anyone that wants to invest in their health. I had a few very kind words from different gut clubbers, which I'm actually not going to go through because I'm very aware of the time and the fact that I've gone way over time, which I thought I might. So if you're interested in joining the Gut Club, registration opened today. I have an early bird offer for the first 48 hours, which means you get a further reduction in price. So it comes down to another $30 off both programs, and you get an additional free 15-minute naturopathic consultation with me as well for the 4th week. So you're going to get an additional $100 of saving. So I'll send you an email, and if you're keen to know more information, please let me know. The program kicks off in late March, but registration closes by the 5th. The reason is if people want to do the poo test, it'll take a few weeks for us to get the results, and it's definitely best if we get back the results before we get cracking into the Gut Club. So I'll send you more information about that. So my last parting words is just to stay connected. I know we've covered a lot tonight. If you want to hear more about this and you want to go on my newsletter list so you can hear about more free upcoming seminars, please email me to say hi and say hook me up with your newsletter. Otherwise, you can join me over on Instagram or Facebook. I am on Instagram, but the main takeaway is check out my website. It's got all of my different blogs, recipes, and where you can find me. And my last thing is thank you. I'm so honored that you have chosen to spend your Thursday evening for how long? For an hour and 15 minutes with me. It actually brings me so much joy. So thank you for being here. And I wish you all the best night and healthy bowel movements. Bye, guys. Actually, I've still got a few of you live. Hi, Fee. Does anyone here want to unmute yourselves? Do you have any questions you want to fire away?